Welcome to Laois Talks. This is a podcast developed in Laois, about business, about tourism, about everything to do with Laois. And tonight I am joined by
John Hayes from the Laois People,
Trudy Carmody, Experiencing Ireland,
Georgina Carey from Solace Eco Garden Centre.
And we'll have more guests on again later on tonight as well. So a few topics we have tonight, but one we want to start off with is the low carbon town, which is what Portlaoise has been. It's very topical at the moment because we have COP26 happening in Glasgow, lots of carbon stuff happening around the country. Everybody being demanded to go low carbon, everything, not just your car, but everything that's out there right now. And Portlaoise has been the low carbon town chosen, the first one in this town. Have you experienced low carbon town stuff yet, John?
I've read about it.
Same as everybody else.
I've read about it, and basically it needs to work for local businesses. I mean, your business can't be impacted, but once it's up and running and it works for local businesses, there's going to be buy-in. But at the moment, people are hearing all this. They're watching the news. They're going, okay, basically we're fossil fuels are out. In a couple of years, you won't be able to buy your petrol or diesel car. The peat powered fire stations or power stations and the coal-fired power stations are closing. And the people who worked in those power stations or worked in the bogs are worried. I mean, basically, and change, I mean, everyone hates it. Everyone has to realise we have to do this.
As they call it, a climate emergency, of course. There's an emergency, an urgency about the whole thing. So It all has to happen very quick. And I think that's where people are falling down at the moment. Is it's all happening very, very rapidly around them. And you're either taking part in it or you're looking at it happening around you, whether you like it or not. I think that's happening here in Portlaoise too.
Absolutely. I mean, look, we're the first of all the towns on the island. We are the canary that is stuck down the mine and basically get on with it.
We're supposed to be the good kids though, right? We're supposed to be the good kids of Ireland, the new low carbon emission town that doesn't have enough cycle lanes or doesn't have a bus route around it or anything. It's like we're missing a lot of ingredients for low carbon.
Well, yes we are. I mean, on the bus routes, the town bus routes.
We do have an electric bus though, don't we?
We do. Martley's, give them the plug there.
Yeah.
They brought in their
that's the first one in Ireland. Now I know there's a company in Dublin that's bringing in more Chinese electric buses very soon. So we'll see a few more, but I'm just not sure how many we're going to see in Portlaoise because we are due a bus centre around Portlaoise bus.
Yes.
That's meant to just transit around Portlaoise, which we do need. There's a lot of people living in Portlaoise.
Well, we need at least 2 bus routes in the town, just for the town. The town is that big. I mean, like we live it every day in our household. My good lady wife, we live in Kilminchie. She's working in the far end of the town, out on the Mountrat Road in Maryborough.
Yeah,
that is some walk back in the evening.
Dark evenings, yeah. It's a hike, right?
And of course, and this has been going on for years. And there's buses passing her on the Mountrat Road. Think about this. They're not allowed to stop. Folks, they're not allowed to stop on the Mountrat Road. There isn't a bus stop on the Mountrat Road. The other thing is,
and if we do get a bus stop, there won't be a shelter. Just so stand in the rain.
Well, Bob, you obviously your crystal ball is working overtime there because that's the next bugbear of mine. Like we have bus stops there in Kilminchie that we use the buses from there a lot. No bus shelters. Where is the sense in that?
2 weeks ago I was in Spain. I made a video at this bus stop in Spain. It was on the top of a mountain looking into a quarry overlooking a huge amount of area, grassland. It's gorgeous, but literally there's nothing else out there apart from a bus stop with a shelter on it. A proper, like normal shelter is quite standard out there as well. Trudy, do you take the bus or what do you do? How do you keep your carbon down? Your carbon footprint?
I don't, unfortunately. I don't live in the town, so I'm between Abbeyleix and Portlaoise. So what I get from what John is saying and the whole carbon thing is I need, when I say I mean we need a viable alternative. It has to become a way of life. And it's not just my car and how I get about and stuff like that. It's got to become a way of life, and I've got to have an alternative to use from my car. So I've got to be given an incentive. If we are to be the first carbon-free town in the country, then that should be a huge product or huge project from the top down, and we should be given a huge injection to do that. And John is right. One of the things is to have a bus or buses that stop around the town and have other towns feeding into it as well, so that I can get to work. And the fastest growing town in the country, apparently.
Yeah.
So if we're to have extra people in here, and that's more cars, more people, so if we can give them enough transport to get to and from work, school, wherever, then that's going to be something they're going to take without thinking. Why would you have a car if you don't think, if you don't need it, if the bus comes close enough? I'd walk a little bit to get the car, but I've got one child going one way, another child going another way, and no buses.
I find out the buses and the trains don't go where I want them either. If you know,
that's it. I know that sounds a bit
approximately where you're supposed to be, but then you're on your own after that, right?
Yes,
So,
yeah, absolutely. And the bus shelters. I mean, why would you have a bus shelter in Spain? I mean, you know, the rain in Spain.
It's a beautiful area, but it's still a proper shelter there.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
But we do actually need.
Is there anything you can change in your life now that would make a massive impact on carbon emissions for Portlaoise?
For Portlaoise as a town.
In business, maybe? Is there a part
in
of business?
Yes. From a tourism point of view, couldn't we come up with activities for people to do that they don't need their cars to get to the activities? Couldn't we look at walking, cycling, things that are not things that are carbon neutral, and give people things to do so they're not having to travel to go and do things in their spare time? So you could look at that, events, activities, stuff like that for people to do, so they're not travelling outside the town. Again, I go back to a way of life. We've all these people living in the town. Give them a way to get to work, give them a way to get to their sports and activities and their leisure time as well, without needing a car.
Where did we get all our presents from at Christmas, though?
Santi.
We're going to go low carbon.
Santi has a sleigh.
Of course, he's reindeer powered.
Well, that's it.
Low carbon town with the reindeer.
Weetabix.
Speaking of Christmas, we are going to be moving into the Christmas part of it now, because we want to find out what we're all going to be doing. Because Christmas, even though I know it's only early November, but it's the ads have started, right? The radio ads have started.
The Christmas decorations.
If you go to Tesco's or Dunn's or Lidl or Aldi or any of the shops in the town, they're all selling Christmas decorations. They're all selling celebrations. It's all here, right? And Georgina's joining us from Sulis as well. So you're not only low carbon over there, but you've also got some plans for Christmas, right?
Yeah, we have loads of plans and events for Christmas. We're very excited. We have our drive-in movies back. After a great success at Halloween, we have decided to do it again.
When is that on?
The Sunday the 19th.
Right.
So there's going to be 3 showings, one at 2, which is Arthur Christmas, and one at 5, which is Home Alone, and an evening one at 8, which is Elf.
Deadly. And have you been over to Sulis, John?
Yes, I love it. And if people who haven't been there, I mean, it's just the scale of the thing. Like you went and bought, was it 40 containers, Georgina?
That's right, yeah.
And what I loved about the containers was you didn't paint them.
Yeah, well, that's trying to keep, it's a lovely colour and a lovely patina on them, and like it tells a story, and it all kind of matches in, and they're all mustard as well, which is very on trend.
Absolutely. And no, it's wonderful. And what I like about it is you have the farmers market there every Saturday, and you always have different food producers at it.
That's right.
And you have basically the food stalls, and you have a different offering, so you keep it fresh every week.
That's right, yeah, we have to keep it different and keep it interesting for everybody, so they're not coming back to the same thing every time.
Yes.
And lots of the stall holders are local people as well, local producers, selling organic vegetables, and over Christmas then we're doing a Christmas market as well, which will be on Sunday for crafts, and Saturday will be the food market. All through December.
How do you contact local businesses to come along and do a farmer's market with you? Do you contact them, or are they looking for a place to do that in?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. At the beginning it was David contacted people, and now because we're getting a name, people are talking about us, and people are talking about us at other markets. So people are starting to come to David now, and we have a massive lineup for Christmas. Lots of crafts, lots of different local artists coming in to sell their Christmas crafts.
Because I can see some tourist opportunities here now.
Absolutely.
Because I've
I'm
been over
wondering-
there with the containers going in and out of the containers. It's a beautiful thing. It's a very different vibe than any other sort of cafe, I suppose, you'd ever feel. I know there's a garden centre, there's other bits attached to it as well, but there's a huge, a massive difference to the way it lays out in front of you as you walk through it. You think you're in one place, then you go into another place, and it's very, very well done, you know.
Yeah.
There's something for everyone in the family as well, I think. No one's going to get bored. You don't need a room to put daddy in while mommy goes shopping.
And what do you reckon on drive-in movies would you go?
I'm wondering, supposing I don't have a car.
low carbon.
Well-
We're back to the low carbon, everybody.
But supposing, is there an offering for someone who doesn't have a car? I know with COVID we can't jump into someone else's car, but is there an area for people who could rock up on their bikes maybe or something?
It's something that we can look into.
Just-
we haven't thought about that. Yeah, but we could definitely look into that. And also, we can encourage people to bring their own cushions, and if the weather is nice, they could sit out in front of the screen.
Fabulous.
That'd be deadly.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. A real winter vibe thing.
Yeah.
Giving out the whole lot of it, yeah. That'd
So
be
I
really
did one of them once before. Here's an idea for you, and I'd go. I don't know about anyone else. The 3 Lord of the Rings movie in a row.
Oh my God. I would be
12
asleep at
hours.
halfway through the first one. And be like,
Yeah, I
12
sat on the
hours.
grass in Marley Park and watched all 3.
12 hours.
12
No,
hours.
thanks. I think I'd watch that for some reason.
It sees up.
Yeah. Any other plans for Christmas, John?
Any other plans? I'll be going to all the Christmas markets. There's a lot on. I'll be over on Solace at Solace at least twice in December. There's obviously a Portlaois Christmas market, Durrow Christmas market. There's a load of them on, and it's just trying to get to them all. But I'm a big kid. I just love Christmas.
Yeah.
I just love. I'd put up the decorations now and the tree now, but I'd be shot.
I'm the
I'd
same.
be
It's
shot
such a
at
Christmas
home.
vibe at home. Yeah.
Mine are
I
up.
start singing away. The Bing Crosby tunes come out of me when I get up in the morning walking around the place. What about you, Trudy? What's your Christmas plans?
Decorations are up.
Are they?
Yes,
You're already there.
yes.
Dead right.
Or all?
I had my Halloween event in the woods last weekend, and well, when you have decorations out, you put them up.
Right.
And, Christmas lists have been done.
Sure, why not? Yeah. If
Yeah.
you want to.
You know,
And what about Solace? Is Solace going to do stuff there around Christmas time? I mean, plans for other things other than your drive-in movies and stuff?
We have lots of events every weekend, different events for children and for adults. So we're doing card making, wreath making, lots of like recycling projects with children to make Christmas decorations. And working with willow, making willow stars. We have a lady coming in to do macrame decorations. Yeah, so it's packed.
It's full on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
every
yeah.
weekend there's something going to be on Solace.
and do we book them in advance or turn up on the day? Or
No,
both?
everything needs to be booked online, and you can book online at the ecoguardshop.ie.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it must be tiring running something every weekend all the time. Yeah.
Well, it's not tiring. It's exciting. I find I love all these things, all these crafty things. So it's not me running all the courses. We get different artists to come in from around Laois. Some of them actually sell stuff at our farmers market, and so it's different artists and craft people coming in to do the courses. So it's exciting. It's good, and we've had great turnouts, especially over Halloween. Everyone booked up quite quickly. So we're looking forward to Christmas now.
Mm. And any more markets, any Christmas markets you can recommend coming this year? No.
I always go into Abbey Lakes. It's my closest one. It's a fabulous, that's a fabulous day.
Do we have
evening.
anything like the German Christmas markets in Laois? No. Did you ever go to a German Christmas market?
Yes.
The
Yes.
big ones, like
Yes.
they're brilliant.
They're
Even when there's
amazing.
nothing at them, they're still pretty good because they do all the lights
It's,
and the
isn't
bunch
it the
and
vibe? And it's,
the vibe,
just the
yeah.
night out, and they really
Yeah.
go for it big time.
Yeah.
I think, think that's a project for someone in Laois that might be listening. And
Solace
if-
is kind of
Yeah.
going along that kind of
Yeah.
that way, where we're going to have everywhere covered with lights, and because we have the street of containers, it kind
Yeah.
of feels
Yeah.
like a
German market.
a German market, and
Yeah.
that's the kind of vibe that we're going to go for
'cause
this
you need
year.
that. We tend
and
to
lots of
kill that-
smells and
Yeah,
scents and
exactly.
stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So that's that.
We tend to stop doing markets like at 6 o'clock in the afternoon or in the evening.
Yeah, I
where
know.
where the German markets go on until midnight. You know, they keep on going all day and all night.
All day and all night.
Yeah. I know it turns into a bit of a beer fest by the end of the German.
Yeah,
or
but
a
you know,
punch
each
fest,
section of the day is for a different member of the family.
Yeah, that's
you know,
true. Yeah,
you know, if
dads
you,
can
if you
just stay from start to end.
Yes, they can eat
Absolutely.
all day and then
Eat
drink
all
all
day.
night. Yeah, yeah.
You get the bitter end of.
It sounds like heaven.
It does, yeah. We need to do this in the middle of Portlaoise, please, because it's close to my house. Just so.
But the whole
handy
main
walk
street, I know PJ will get PJ in one of these evenings, and I know PJ would love to see even a section,
It's
the middle
from Kavanagh's,
section.
by the way, if you don't know what it is,
yeah,
it's
PJ
from
from
Kavanagh's,
Kavanagh's. I know he'd love to see the section of the main street closed off, and that would be ideal as well, and it would bring the same vibe as Georgina.
And what would be wrong with closing it off? Why would there even be small opposition to that? Closing it off is a fantastic idea.
It is a fantastic idea, and it needs to get support and momentum and happen from, I think, shopkeepers and the public and the council.
If you could just walk, because you can walk down Main Street now, but obviously there's always cars parked there coming and going, particularly around the takeaways. You know, around the takeaways, it can be quite hard to get by those cars at night time and takeaways.
And
If
you
it's just
know,
closed off,
it
you'd
could
walk.
probably revitalise the main street
Yeah, of course, yeah.
as a place to not just shop, but sit down and have that cup of coffee
And
or
aren't they
whatever.
bringing in rules now to change that we can't eat outside anymore? That the whole COVID lockdown thing to bring them outside, now they want to bring them all back inside again. Because that requires a change in legislation for them to be able to have on-street
So
stuff.
I can't have my kebab outside.
You can't, no, unless you're drunk lying up
That's
against the
a
wall
bit like-
somewhere. No, you can't sit down outside and have your kebab.
You could
no.
always get your kebab in a brown paper bag
And that's
with the bottle of beer.
with
you
the
know.
bottle of beer. The
Just
bottle of
what you
beer. I love having me every so often. I go to a certain spot in Portlaoise, and their kebabs are out of this world. And can I give them a plug?
Yeah, of course, yeah, sure.
Best choice pizza and kebab. The kebabs are brilliant, and I'll always have a sneaky kebab.
I haven't even eaten that many kebabs, but I do love the name Laois kebab, which I always get from shish kebab. You know, it's just called Laois kebab. It's just I'd never eat now.
Great
It's a
name.
deadly sign, though. It's good,
Great
right?
name and great sign.
Welcome back. We've had a little change in the seating arrangement, so we've now been joined by two different people. So just introduce yourselves before we go any further.
Eamon Callahan, Vision 85.
Paddy Boogie, I wear lots of hats.
The man of many hats.
What can Paddy Boogie do? That's the question.
Oh, there's lots of things, but we won't go into them now.
International man of mystery.
I keep the illusion going I can do loads of things.
Listen, lads, I know you just joined in, so we want to touch back on the low carbon town, because I know you guys have views on the low carbon emissions thing to do with Laois, but more particularly to do with Portlaoise. So, Eamon, what do you think about it?
Well, like we have the main base is going to be the Cube, which is going to be the low carbon centre of excellence. And in with Portlaoise winning the tidiest town, like it kind of works well that we're becoming that carbon and we're cleaning up our act and things like that. But with the Cube, they've actually got big foreign bodies that are going to come in and work with businesses, startups, entrepreneurs, and use that as a base to come up with low carbon ideas, concepts, technology, anything to do that will actually lower our footprint. And also they're looking at like going into businesses and helping them lower their footprint too, whether they're introducing solar panels or some sort of a low carbon kind of a concept.
Yeah.
Looking
The
at energy
retrofitting
use as well. Energy use
Yeah.
is a huge issue. We've a huge stock of kind of old buildings here in the town.
Yeah.
And some of them are fine buildings, there's nothing wrong with them, but they were built in an era when you had plenty of turf and you could burn turf and you could do all those
Good
kind of
old
lovely
turf,
things.
Yeah.
And so that's changing now. And, you know, I'm going to miss the turf fire, to be honest with you, but unfortunately, it seems that's the way we have to
But what's
go.
the alternative? If we don't have a turf fire, what are we going
There
to
will be a few renegades, all right.
That's a good question. I mean, to talk about electricity, we're probably not able to generate enough electricity at the
According
moment.
to Eamon Ryan, the Green Party, we're going to have blackouts this winter. And
That's
what he
part of
says,
because of his policies, in fairness, because they shut down the likes of the turf burning power stations without having something else in place to take over. So you've Egypt's in Donegal objecting to something going on in Portlaoise down here because there was a pink butterfly seen here 300 years ago in folklore. And the whole planning side of things is going to have to change. If we want to get low carbon, we're going to have to decide what is it we want as a country. And then we're going to have to say to all these head the balls, get lost. This is what we're doing. It's the same as if we're going to put wind farms out on the coast. We're going to do it. We're going to put infrastructure in place to get the power to where it's needed. We're trying to turn into a kind of a digital age here in the country. And that takes power. Now, obviously, technology is improving as time goes on, and the amount of energy that's going to be required will be reduced. But in the meantime, it's not there yet. But we're jumping the gun. We're trying to be the good guys as a country now, not just Portlaoise, and saying that we're going to be carbon neutral and all of that. But we've nothing put in place. We have the ability with wave power, with wind power, to be exporting electric power to Europe. And like if you take agriculture, for example, we're at to feed 35 million people. We could do the same with power and energy off this island. And from that point of view, low carbon, we have all the infrastructure, or we don't have the infrastructure, we have the potential to have it. And I sometimes wonder, like, are our decision and policy makers fit for purpose? Because they're of a different era. They're not able to keep up with how things are changing and how fast they have to change. And they did their time. I'm talking about senior civil servants now here. They did their time. They did their apprenticeships, went through all the different stages. But the world has just moved on. And we need to be able to move faster, and that means we need to have people who can actually go out. Instead of talking about we're going to spend so many billion on putting insulation in buildings, put that few billion into getting the energy going first.
Yes.
And because it's carbon neutral energy, we don't need insulation if we don't want it at that point in time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's all about doing what's the priority. First of all, there's electric cars now, and they're pushing us to get electric cars. There's no infrastructure to charge them quickly in a lot of places.
Or no electricity.
Or no electricity to drive it either.
Yeah.
We're putting in...
And the price of electric cars, I mean, they're very, very, very expensive
Exactly.
compared to second-hand normal cars on the road, yeah.
And if you take, like... they're talking now about 50, 60,000 to retrofit your house to make it carbon neutral. No one has that kind of money nowadays, in fairness, because everyone's at the pin of their collar to pay their mortgages, for Christ's sake.
Or rent. I mean,
Or rent,
at
yeah.
the moment is insane.
Hey, Paddy,
Absolutely.
did you see the Farmers Journal last week that the first electric tractor arrived in Ireland? So it's 14 horsepower and it runs for between 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
And
2 to 4 hours.
Yeah, so the retail of this is 35,000. The same tractor in a diesel is 14,500.
Yeah.
What farmer is going to be able to push a machine to go
But
for
2 to 3 hours, that's just...
2 to 4 hours? Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's suitable for mowing your lawn.
That's why JCB, the man behind JCB in the UK, has decided to go hydrogen.
And he's
for
right.
JCBs, because he tried electric things, he tried electric diggers, even little small diggers, backyard ones where you do your patio and stuff. And the same problem, 2 to 3 hours, they need to be charged up again. It takes too long. You need to have battery chargers. And what he found was, when he brought the JCBs to site, that he was bringing a diesel generator on the site as well, which defeats the purpose.
It.
Yeah, and hiding it out the back of the
Yes.
thing, try and charge up the stuff, and having 2 of everything, so having 2 yorks on it. So this doesn't work for the big farmers. I mean, we're onto the IFA now straight away, which means if you're looking at farm machinery, doing this in a carbon neutral way just isn't really possible, right? Not at the moment.
Well, you'd never plough your field, would you? You'd be
Not
there
in
for
4
weeks.
hours.
But the problem with the tractor is you turn on the PTO, you're going to start burning the battery down quicker. You could get, 20 minutes out of it? You know?
Yeah.
This is all going to add to it, like.
Yeah.
We're not there yet. When you talk about low carbon, and I'm jumping between farming and low carbon because it's all tied in, we've methane.
I was just going to say the word methane. It's like a dirty word now, is it?
Yeah, they're talking about methane being a dirty word. But then, excuse me, if you want biodigesters on your farm, up until now, the law was only slurry from 2 farms could be introduced onto a 3rd farm. So the rules were there against you straight away to try and do something. Again, someone will object to a digester going into the area. Now, I have to put my hand up. There was a digester going into the area where I'm living years ago, and we objected to it. And to my great shame, it's the biggest mistake I ever made was supporting the banning of that out in Kyle-Talisha. I'll be straight about it. And if I hadn't the time back again, I'd have said, Jesus, let's go for it. Because it was an outlet for... obviously, methane is an issue that we're going to have to deal with now because all the heads of states have signed up to a 30% reduction in it. But there's things there, like there's technology there now. There's feeds that you can give animals to cut down on it for starters. But by also using the slurry for generating methane to burn to make gas and to make electricity, you're going to take that out of the system anyway. And what's left then is a nutrient byproduct which can go out on the land anyway.
And also, they can take CO2 over, which is putting the bubbles back in your Coke and your champagne. There's a farm you'll see it on YouTube called Ashley Farms in the UK.
Yes.
And most of their machinery and everything is Irish, cross-engineering. So they literally created a cow's stomach. They put in ryegrass, sugar beet pulp and maize. They put into the digester and feed it in. The new system they put onto it, they realised they can take the CO2 out of it and create a separate entity which creates more money. And what they've done with local farmers in the area, they've all stopped doing what they're doing, milking, whatever farm they were, and they become growers and subbed in contractors for this company. And they literally have a life. They can go on holidays, the whole lot, but they actually make more of an income doing this with the best of machinery that's provided by Ashley Farms. And it's a greener area where they are too, because the cows are gone. The growing of beef and all that is gone, you know.
But also, if you take things like industrial hemp, everyone thinks you're talking about funny stuff. We're not. We're talking about industrial hemp.
This is Ireland, though. You can't talk about hemp without talking about
There's different grades.
Yeah, different grades, yeah. But as an alternative crop for farmers to grow, it's also used in so many products for building, cutting out the carbon that's in the low carbon. Eamon, I'm right in that.
Zero
you
waste.
know more about this than me.
Hemp, takes 90 days to grow, which is good. It's a very valuable crop to a farmer. So between the Isles alone, they can get about 1,500 quid an acre. Then you look at the rest of it where there's no waste. So you've got the hemp shive, which can be used in building materials for hempcrete. You've got the outer skin, which is the fibre, which is used in insulation, car parts, clothing, the whole lot. You've got the dust, which is made into pellets as a cat litter, and you've got the seeds that can be resold and put back into the thing. So there's zero waste in this product. 1 acre of this is equivalent to 10 acres of trees. It takes 90 days to grow, and when it absorbs carbon, and when you do cut it down, it's still absorbing carbon, and you can't burn it, won't go on fire. They're using it now in insulation houses because it's waterproof, it's rodent resistant, and it's fire resistant.
So why aren't we growing it by the bazillion acres?
Because the same thing in Ireland is, there's still THC levels are high in it. No, there's different grades. You can get a lower THC count, which is not illegal as such. It's not categorized as cannabis. But the problem is, I feel like we're so uneducated about it. Like, I import flax as an animal bedding. I sell it in the equine industry, and now I'm going into the farming industry. And it's a phenomenal product because it's clean, it's dust-free, it's natural antibacterial, it's got a neutral pH. When you're finished with it and it goes back on the land, it's organic and natural. It's not going to affect or burn the ground like it would with shavings. Shavings takes 10 years. Straw can take up to 10, 12 months to break down.
This is flax. This is a million-year-old crop that's been around.
Yeah, and it was grown in Ireland and it stopped.
Yes.
But this product you got the flax linen, and what I sell is the shive, which is the straw-based part of it. And currently at the moment I import it, and I actually can't get it in quick enough to sell it to my customers. And then I'm getting more and more into the farming. Before, any products I was selling, mostly the equine industry. Now farmers are coming to this because they want something that goes into the slats that can actually break down. Not your wood shavings, not your sand, anything like that. And these are the products that are going to start coming to market more and more. And people are, I got tested by the equine centre, came back as a very clean bedding for any sort of animal. So it's a win-win for Ireland if we can look into these alternatives. And for the farmer as well, as a simpler, easier income.
Yes,
you know.
And the killer is these crops. They grow like weeds in our climate. I mean, there's the easiest things to grow, and we did it in the past. I mean,
flax is a very old product.
It's a very yes, absolutely. And we had a big linen industry in Laois in the past.
Part of that was driven by actually the American Civil War because cotton wasn't available.
Correct.
And so they had to grow flax to here in Laois.
So now we need hemp shirts. That's what
we do.
A clothing line from Laois made of hemp.
All joking aside, like if you take the low carbon in Laois, it's all tied in. It's not just about the urban area; it's the rural as well.
Of course it is. Yeah.
And it's about changing the way we think and about growing the different crops that feed into this low carbon economy. And that's what we're about. We're well able to adapt in this country. Farmers are probably the best adapters you'll find.
They're kind of necessity of adaptation, though.
Yes, and it is. Yeah. Yes, and in fairness, farmers are willing to play their part. But like, there's no point in saying, like, I'll give you an example. I do a bit of farming. I'm not the best farmer in the world by any means, but I do a bit and I enjoy it.
One of your many hats.
But I did a calculation 2 years ago when it was possible to travel. I went to Lanzarote on holidays. And I calculated the net carbon now on the farm. And I created more carbon on that holiday than I did on the farm net, when you take into account all my hedgerows, all my grassland, and the crops that I grew. And okay, there was a few cattle there and might be belching a bit, but that's fair enough. That's what they're supposed to do. But if technology was there for me to put the feed or the mixture in with the feed, which they're now bringing on stream, it's just not being brought on fast enough. I'd be feeding that to the cattle. So
well, Paddy, I actually have that product, and I've had it under my nose. I didn't even realise it. So there's a product I import from Turkey called zeolite.
Right.
And zeolite is a natural organic thing from volcanic rock. The one I bring in is about 96% pure. What zeolite does is it's got a negative charge, so anything it kind of gets in contact with, it absorbs it. So it actually is proven that it can minimize, in time, minimize the methane exit from cows. It helps improve bone growth, fertility, calving down. It's not just for cows. It's used in poultry to minimize burns on their feet. It's used by humans to tighten the toxins and metals of their body to put into their water and drink it. When it comes out the other end, it's a slow release conditioner, soil conditioner. So it goes in the land and it breaks down over time. The biggest market they use it for at the moment is they put in the copper mines to absorb all the waste copper, heat it up over 900 degrees. The zeolite burns away. What's left is copper. So so zeolite, it's a product there I was using mostly in the equine industry to minimise ammonia in stables and in the sheds and all that. You can put in the water drinkers for any sort of animal too. It actually, if you spill oil on the ground and concrete, put zeolite on it, it'll actually lift the oil off the concrete that there's no mark. It lifts paint off. It's 100% natural. You can put your finger into it, tip it off your tongue. It won't do any harm. So this is a product that could possibly, with the figures I'm looking at with the manufacturer, to minimise methane by anywhere from 25 to 35%.
Which there's the target met straight away that they're talking about.
So how come you, now this is not getting to you, right? But like the stuff I'm listening to is like miracle products, right? It's like this goes back to your point of the government not moving fast enough, or maybe being like maybe the minister for agriculture isn't as educated about agriculture as he probably should be. So there's stuff out there that's already able to meet the targets that we want to meet, right? And plus, grass-fed beef can offset with their own carbon because it's on grass and it's not using feed at all. So there's all kinds of solutions there now, but we're not moving towards it. Why not?
Well, first of all, you don't want a minister for agriculture who knows anything about agriculture in one sense, because that's the worst thing, because they'll be set in their ways in some respects, you know. All joking aside now, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Course, They know too much then.
But what you do need is people to understand the science that's there, and to utilise the science and to bring that into policy. And that's where I have the problem with kind of senior civil servants. They've gone through the system, but they haven't really learnt anything really, other than how to be a civil servant is all they've learned to be.
Yeah.
And what we need is people now who can take the new science that's out there. And listen, there's technological breakthroughs happening every 10 minutes in this world, in every respect, in every sector. And it's there at the moment for agriculture. It's just, A, we don't have access to it because we're not being, A, told about it. B, it's the policy could take 10 years before it gets through that you can actually use it. And secondly, thirdly, it's about not wanting things, because change, as someone said earlier on the program, is difficult. People don't like it, and therefore, if you're used to doing things in a certain way, you're not going to change. But having said that, there's a whole new generation of farmers out there. And even the older guys, even older than me, they realise that their livelihoods are dependent now on being able to comply with the new rules and regulations. And some of the rules and regulations are crazy, to be honest about it, because there's no practicality in it. They want to increase organic farming in this country, but they want to cut back on the number of cows. You need cow dung to manure the soil if you want organic farming, you know what I mean?
And then organic beef is held up very high, in high regard across the world. Or our beef in this country, particularly Irish beef.
All our beef, it doesn't matter whether it's organic or not, you know. Like we produce enough food in Ireland for about 35 million people.
Just say that again now, just so in case anyone wasn't listening, because that's an amazing. There's 5 million people on the whole island.
Yeah, we produce enough for 35 million. So we export an awful lot of what we produce, okay? And the funny thing about it is now we're being penalised for producing that food, and in a problem, I'm not going to say it's carbon neutral, but we are one of the lower carbon offenders in producing food in the world. This country is everyone in different sectors, whether it's chicken, whether it's cattle, whether it's dairy products, whatever, vegetable, whatever the case may be. We are one of the lowest, and that's on record. And I equate this to the likes of say Norway exports oil. Are they going to cut back their oil?
Or they drive a lot of electric cars, though. Norway's never wrong.
They do, because they're selling the oil to everyone else, you see, and then using it to...
Yep.
I like Norway, by the way. I've been there several times. A lovely country, lovely people. And but the point I'm making is that they're not being penalised for exporting that oil. We pay for the carbon footprint of that oil in this country. So no one else is paying for the carbon footprint of the food except us. So we're getting hit twice as hard here as farmers in this country. And like, it's the one natural resource that we have, it's the one natural industry we have. Granted, we have a lot of foreign direct investment in this country, and it's all very welcome, don't get me wrong. But what I'm saying is, when Ireland was on its knees back in 2008, 2009, 2010, farmers carried the country, in fairness, because they expanded, they produced more raw materials for industry, we increased our exports, and we got the country back going again, in fairness.
Yeah.
And we were asked to do it,
Yeah.
and we rose to the occasion. Now we're being treated as if we're the bad boys, because all of a sudden carbon and the world is coming to an end has come on the scene. Like, if you think about it, we have an increase in population in the last, say, 50 years. We have an increase in the number of cars on the road. Now, I like cars, don't get me wrong, and I prefer to drive than walk. But we have an increase in foreign travel via airplanes. We have a lot more people going on these large cruise ships, and yet population of livestock and things is about the same.
Yeah.
But the livestock side of things and farming and all of that is getting blamed for 35% of all of this.
And
you
is
know.
that why there's a IFA protest coming up in Dublin on, what's that,
The 21st of this month, yes. There's a protest in Merrion Square, and it's basically to highlight to people, listen, we're one of the most efficient food producers in the world, not just in Europe, in the world. And we're being penalised beyond, like, the policy, the way it's set at the moment, is going to see this world go into famine in the next few years, because they're penalising those that are producing the basics that we need. We need water, we need shelter, we need food. Those are the three basics. Everything else after that is a bonus.
Yeah.
And I think governments have looked at this in the wrong way. I'm not talking about our own now. All governments have looked at this in the wrong way. They should have decided, first of all, what is it that we actually need as a race or a species to survive? We need the three things I just mentioned. Now, after that, I can have clothes if I want them, depending on where you live. I can decide that my clothes are going to be worn more than once, if need be. But do you know what I mean? Do I need to go to Japan on holidays? Do I need to go to Lanzarote on holidays every year, whatever the case may be? It's lovely to go, and I enjoy going. But do I actually need it? And I suppose what we found during the lockdown there was only certain things we needed. We needed food, we needed heat, and things like that, the basics. And I think that they should have taken the focus away from the basics. And if you're going to have a penal system or a tax system, put it on the things that are nice to have, but you don't necessarily have. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's different people, everyone has different income levels in this country and in the world. There's people who are barely surviving and barely getting enough to eat. They shouldn't be penalised because the price of food now has to go up to meet the demands of...
But the price of
steam
food is
on it.
going to go up because of the CO2 emissions anyway, because fuel price is going up as well. So if fuel goes up, then everything
But
happens.
there's just came out in the pit, it's out a while. There's a new way of growing. See the new way of growing vegetables now, elevated growth. So
Yeah,
they
I'm
put-
not a fan of it, I have to say.
It's just sped up growing, like you're just literally mimicking what's already been done in the ground. But it's good because it kind of gets, well, it's good and it's bad. It's bad, and the farmers have been doing it for years and years and putting their back into it. It's more of a, getting the results and without the heavy lifting as such. So you're literally mimicking the conditions and all that. You're growing lettuce quicker, potatoes, things like that, and that's going to be a bigger market. But it takes a lot of power and energy to literally get these conditions with the heating at the proper thing, pushing in water, the whole lot, lighting, the whole things like that, because you have to mimic conditions of weather. But
is this intensive? Is this an intensive, a quicker cycle?
Yeah,
farm?
literally no.
Well, it's like a factory.
Sure,
It's basically a factory, and you supply everything artificially.
So we got rid of peat. So what they're doing is they're actually growing it without peat. Simple as, and that's
It's floating
that's the way
in
to-
water,
Floating
yeah.
in water.
Yeah.
And it's elevated. So in other words, they actually can leave it in water for a certain time, rise it up out of water. So in other words, that with the heat and everything that's in it, let it down when it needs more, and you can actually control the growth of what's coming out.
It's like aqua
you-
farming thing.
And you have 4 or 5 stories of that then
Yeah,
up and down.
it goes
you know.
up and up and up. So
Wow.
it's
But
everything
it's
comes
That
back.
conserving.
sounds like science fiction. I
Yeah.
mean, that sounds like something you would see in a science fiction movie.
But it's happening.
It is
It's in
happening.
Ireland.
Yeah, it is happening.
You know?
I'm not a fan of it, but there's a need for it. In fairness, if with the world population.
But from a farming point of view, Paddy, right? Like over the last few years, like farmers that are in farming at the moment, and they're pushing and trying to look at, and they're looking at going, what's coming up behind? The kids that are going to take over. There's a big percentage of people kids that don't want to take over farming, And the farmer has to keep going and try to put a plan in place. But sometimes with a lot of them, there is no plan. If there's no one to take it over, what do they do? Like,
Yeah, we, with a different hat that I wear now in Mount Development Association, we ran a course a few years ago on succession planning for farmers. And it was a great success in the sense that a good few people came to it with a solicitor in to talk about what's involved and the black sheep clause and all of that kind of stuff. But the biggest problem the majority of the farmers had was they couldn't identify an heir. Now that's terrible to say.
but you know, they always saying in Ireland, there's guys out there like will love to get into the farming and will like work their bone to get into the farming. Then there's guys there that are in farming, being realistically, shouldn't be in farming because they're looking at it from a something to sell on, something to make money from.
But is there something we could do then this Christmas? Something we've maybe experienced over the years in our own Christmas market that you've gone to, Eamon, or you've gone to, Paddy, or is there something we've seen before we're not doing now that we could do this year that would actually attract in large areas? Like we were talking earlier about the German markets, the German Christmas market.
Well, I think the one thing that we need to do is like there has to be people with energy and drive and enthusiasm and business owners and all to kind of come up with like a think tank, come up with new ideas, what they want to see happen, what they remember. Instead of the people at the top coming up with ideas or here like trying to replicate what's done in other areas. Like the major thing in this country is what happens in the bigger cities not all the time works well in rural areas.
True.
But they try to replicate it. And it's the wrong way because like in everything in rural areas, you have to see what the population is, where it's located, access-wise, accessibility. There's a lot more factors. Whereas if you brought this to Dublin, no matter where you go, you'll find the space to do these things. So what Laois needs to look at is, the one thing we always say about Laois, and everyone keeps saying, anytime comments go up and all, they go, well, there's more to Laois than Portlaois. And there is. But the problem we see is, is there too many chiefs and not enough Indians? Are we not sitting down and coming up with a bit of energy and drive and thinking outside the box? And so as someone said to me one day, the best person to run tourism for Laois would be a Kerry man, because he'd be the only man that could sell tickets to go look at a rock in a field.
That's true. They have it off to a T. But we have good people in tourism like Trudy here, for example, who are doing a lot of work to show people the fact that there is an awful lot more to Laois than what you see, just passing through. And I had a different idea that I was going to say now, but Trudy caught my eye there, and I just thought of it.
Paddy, but see, the thing about it is collaborations. I don't think there's enough entities and bodies and all that are kind of working in harmony together. Now, there are people that are doing it, and there is organisations doing it, but I think more can add value to each other. Instead of just saying, I don't want him making all the money. No, do it together, minimise your risk and increase your reward. And that's what should be done.
I was down in Killarney. I got married recently, and we went down to Cork and Kerry on our honeymoon.
Congrats, Paddy.
Thank you. And see that ball patch? That's a thumbprint.
There's another hat.
I'll have to wear a hat
Gotta
now
hope
to
the
cover
camera
that.
picks up his ball patch.
We went on a Jarvey around Killarney, and what I loved about the fact was he was telling his own story, and he was telling great stories about Killarney, but he was selling every other business in Killarney when he was doing it in a nice, subtle way. And the fact that he was promoting other businesses meant I'm now talking about that guy, and I'll be recommending that guy to anyone going down there, for the simple reason he wasn't selfish. He looked at a bit like you, Eamon. In fairness to you, you brought all of us in here tonight to your studio to do this, and you have another 10 or 12 people lined up to come in next week.
I'm looking for more. If people are interested in coming in
but it's that generosity. That is what's making you successful.
It's the bigger picture, Paddy. I always see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is if we can get in different people in different areas to bring and talk about their area and to sell it and become, the person that can kind of connect businesses and connect people and connect events. And like myself and Bob, and we've chatted before about other, we have a few ideas where we can actually promote Laois from a tourist point of view, and it's going to add value to businesses, to bringing money into the area, to employment, things like that. But the main thing about what Laois Talks is it's not all about us. We're not QVC. We're not selling items. What we're doing is we're selling the county. We're literally saying Laois has more to offer. Now we're going to tell you about it. We're going to show you. We're going to bring the people in to tell you what's happening. events, food, drink, even agriculture. Like something that no one actually, like I've actually made contact with the young marketing firm, and they're actually on board to come in and talk as well. So, but it's not just about talking we're going to do. We're going to have actions. We're going to have John out on the road, going to these areas, talking to the person behind the business, the person behind the event, you know, the local person that can actually tell the story about their village, their town, where they grew up and all that stuff. It's a storyline. And then from there, then we're going to create, like, we're going to be the Nationwide / Jeremy Clarkson the farming. We're going to have that. It's just going to be all about Laois. Simple as.
I need your tractor. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we need tractors.
I don't have a Lamborghini though.
I need a tractor. Somebody wants to teach me how to drive a tractor. That's what
Anyone
he
that
said.
has a tractor that we can throw Bob into and we can
Yeah.
put in a few cameras, get
Yes.
in touch.
Yeah,
Yes.
do.
Anyone that, like, any charging points for John and his bike and a cup of coffee, get in touch.
Yeah. And speaking of John, we need to cover a little bit of sport before we go, by the way. So don't wander off.
No, I'm not going anywhere. No, it's been wonderful tonight. Sport. I mean, we can't finish without mentioning the sport. It's been a great week for Laois hurling. We had the last Sunday we had the Premier Intermediate final between Ballynakill and Ballyfin. That was a good game, and Ballyfin will be kicking themselves. They missed too many chances. And Ballynakill won. They're back up into the senior. And in the senior final, Clough-Ballacolla bet Boris Kilcotton. Boris Kilcotton winning by 7 points at half time. And Clough-Ballacolla, it was like the mother and father of all fightbacks and comebacks. And they won by a point. Pipped Boris Kilcotton by a point. Heartbreak for Boris Kilcotton. That's their third loss in the final in the last number of years. Hard to take. I was there. Luckily, I was there in 2016 when they won their first as a combination, Boris Kilcotton, and the joy and the tears were flowing. It was a wonderful occasion. So you have these incredible highs and incredible lows in sport. But I have to say, Clough-Ballacolla, congratulations on the win. But it's history, because not only did Clough-Ballacolla win 2 in a row, they won it in the same year. The 2020 and 2021 championships were played off this year.
And there was a celebrity ad too.
Buff Egan, delighted. I spotted Buff Egan early on in the afternoon. I said, like, I'll make my way over to Buff at the end of the second game. And Buff very, very kindly stood in for a little bit of a chat with me. It was great to get it on film. And Buff, and then he made his way out. He made his way out to Ballacolla then for the celebration. It was a wonderful standard of hurling, and it was great to see a guy like Buff, who basically goes to all these hurling matches, promotes hurling. He's one of
his own pocket, pays his own entry fee.
Correct.
Makes his own, from Kerry, makes his own way up to it.
Correct.
And the feedback he gave on Snapchat was a beast of a game.
A beast of a game. He said. I mean, to me, when we were chatting there, he said basically you wouldn't see anything as good in Cork.
He actually
or
rated
Kilkenny.
a better game over Kilkenny, like the final in Kilkenny as well. He was saying it was what he saw hurling wise. Laois are actually come on, but heaps and bounds. And then the only negative part of both being here was getting locked in the toilets, which made the Irish Independent.
But I know, but there's no such thing as bad publicity. I mean, the amount of views he put that video up.
For sure, he made his way to Ballacolla, went in with the team, had a few pints. Like, that's the one thing, anytime Buff has come to Laois, that even with the Laois hurlers and all, they've actually brought him in, they've actually fed him, they've given him something to drink and all that stuff, but they've actually welcomed him, because he's promoting the small clubs and the small game, Yeah,
but not only the small clubs, even at inter-county level, like the Joe McDonagh Cup, basically, that second tier competition doesn't get a look in. I mean, and the national media, I point the finger there.
And Buff is fighting for that. Buff is always on about that the Joe McDonough's not been. And the Christie Ring.
Well, Buff is right about that. I mean, basically, we're saying hurling is the national game, but then basically every summer it comes around, it's the natural time for hurling. It's basically peak hurling season, and they're showing, okay, the All-Ireland Championship. You have the provincial championships, the All-Ireland Championship, but the second tier, Joe McDonagh, not being shown. Now, there is no excuse in this day and age. We can do it here in his studio. You have the equipment. The equipment is getting smaller. cheaper and better. So there is no excuse not to be able to go down and stream these games. And to be fair, Laois County Board and other county boards around the country have streamed a lot of games during the shutdown and during the pandemic. So yeah, great game. Some wonderful matches coming up this weekend. Well, not only the football, you have the junior camogie semi-finals. You have Portlaoise against Portlaoise are playing. Who are they playing? Clockballacalla in one semi-final. The other one is Nave Eamon and Camross in the other semi-final. Also, speaking of Camross, well done. They had a huge win there in the intermediate semi-final in the camogie. And then, of course, that's Saturday, the camogie junior semi-finals. Sunday is the big one. It's the two big towns in Laois. It's Portarlington against Portlaoise. And my money's been on Portarlington. I was for the 2020 championship. It's still on Port for the 2021 championship, but they're only going to win by 2 points. But it'll mean another double because St. Conleth's brought the senior ladies championship back to Portarlington for the first time ever recently, and Port will make it a Portarlington double in the ladies and the men's.
That's our sports roundup there. But that's all you need to know from Laois. Absolutely everything. Thank you to everybody who joined in tonight. Eamon, Paddy, Trudy, John and Georgina, who's come over from
Matt
as well. And Matt, the producer, which is the most important person to be here, because without him none of this sounds or even looks as good as it is.
He's going to make it look sexy and make it look good.
If you want to be on the show, please get in touch with us here at the team at any time, and you want to talk about your stuff, or you maybe prefer to sponsor the show, which could also be possible, I suppose, in a future episode at some point. Thank you very much for joining us all, and we'll see you at the next episode.